Can you imagine my shock and horror when I get up one morning, like I do every day, off to the loo for my morning pee, only to have this liquid pour from my bottom without any warning whatsoever? I got such a fright, I actually shouted, "What the was that?" My hubby came running, asking what's going on. There I stood with my pajama pants in my hand, and I said, "I think we've got a problem," because there in the loo was a whole lot of blood, lots and lots of blood. I got dressed in a state of, I don't know, felt sick really. We went to the doctor's, waited for him to arrive. We were the first ones there. No appointment made. I was like, I have to get to the bottom of this. Anyway, he asked me a lot of questions, but was unsure of what it actually could be, and decided to refer me to a specialist for a colonoscopy. And for those of you who don't know what a colonoscopy, it's basically a procedure they do in hospital where they stick a camera up your whatsit to have a look and see what is happening with your intestines. So I think I had to wait almost a week for my appointment, and I think it was 2 days I waited for the results. So preparing for a colonoscopy is not nice because of course they want you to clean out your tubes before you go in. The actual procedure itself is painless. They do it under anesthetic, but it's the waiting that kills you, because now what have they found? Anyway, I noticed that I've had quite a bit of pain in my lower abdomen, and I thought that's weird because most people I know who've been for colonoscopy, there is no pain. So that was a little surprise for me, but I tried to keep my mind positive. Anyway, day 2, still haven't heard from him. I think that's it, I'm phoning his offices. So I phoned his lady and I said, "Come on, I need to know, what's happened." Anyway, she phoned me back to say the doctor wants to see you. Not nice, because now I have to wait until tomorrow to see the doctor. And of course, we have the most magnificent minds that love negativity, and they love to, it loves to build a complete story from nothing. So by the time I got to the doctor's office, I was an absolute wreck. Anyway, my husband and I sat opposite him, and he really did not mince his words. He said, "Evelyn, you have colon cancer." It even hits me now in the solar plexus. What? Yes, you have colon cancer. I have sent off for tests, but I don't need to wait for them. I know exactly what I'm looking at. He showed me photographs, and you know what? His lips were moving, and I was probably nodding, but I wasn't listening. It was like total overwhelm. In fact, I started to feel faint and said, "I have to lie down." And I literally put my hand up, like, "Stop talking, I've got to lie down before I pass out." Anyway, so I rushed to the bed in his rooms and lay there while he gently reassured me that he was going to do everything he could. He also explained that the pain I had been feeling was where he had tattooed on either side of the tumor in my intestines, which I thought was really clever. I mean, how to plan ahead. He knew when he cut me down just above my belly button to my pubic bone that he would know exactly where to cut when he went in. Anyway, so I managed to pull myself together. The blood flowed back to all the parts of my body, and I sat opposite him, and he started to describe what I had. He gave me the name of it and said, "Well, do you want to write it down?" I said, definitely not. And he was actually quite shocked that I didn't want to, for want of a better word, label what it was that I had. But as I explained to him, I would be on Dr. Google, and just about everyone else I know would be Googling it. And then I would have lots of doctors around me, and that was not happening. So he chuckled because he understood. Anyway, he explained that I would have to come into the hospital and that it would take 3 to 4 days, that I would be there, and that he would actually schedule it for as soon as possible. And he kept using the word or the sentence, Evelyn, you have to understand that you're on a journey now. And I was like, what? Like, just get this out, let's get it over with. And he went, it's not like that. It's not like having your shoulder fixed, or your ankle done, or your something removed. This is a journey. And I never really understood what he said or what he was trying to say. And at that point I didn't care, because now I had to absorb the information that he'd given me. So we booked into hospital for the following week, and we drove home. And I can remember thinking to myself, breathe, Evelyn, breathe, because I felt like my whole life was sitting on my chest, in my throat. What the hell had just happened? And of course now we're on our way home to explain to our 20-year-old daughter that mommy has colon cancer. So that was quite tough. And I think you could safely say the journey home was very quiet, as both of us absorbed, or tried to absorb, what had just happened. Getting home and taking our daughter into, actually, funny enough, my office, because I worked from home, which was quite a special, sacred space. We broke the news to her, and quite honestly, we cried for 3 days. We sat in that room. Okay, we did sleep, or tried to sleep, but we covered all the questions that you do. The what ifs, why me? What if I die? What am I going to do now? Coming from your child, obviously there's all sorts of questions, because they don't want to lose a parent. And looking back, those 3 days, I may have really wallowed at the time in self-pity. But what it did, and what we often don't do, was allow not only me, but my family to really absorb and question, and I want to use the word accept what was going on, because we really went into dark places and asked dark questions, as you do, because the minute somebody tells you've got cancer, you think you're going to die. And it's absolutely not true. We have been programmed that way, but it allowed the three of us to really process and absorb. And that was one of the defining moments of my journey, because we often just, for want of a better phrase, I'm going to say we're going to pick up our big girl brookies and we carry on. When in fact, taking a moment to actually acknowledge what's happened is really powerful in your recovery. So there were lots of phone calls and lots of family. It was the same time as COVID. So not too many visitors, but a lot did come, and really, again, shared their feelings and really helped out at a time when we were struggling mentally. Anyway, after the third day, I thought that's enough now. It's time to actually think about what's next. And I remember standing at my bedroom window, looking out and going, okay, I'm going through this for a reason. I want you to guide me, God. You guide me. You point me in the direction that I should go. And it was really amazing. I felt like I had handed over properly the trust to the universe to guide me with this journey. It gave me a little bit of peace, perhaps calmed my anxiety a little bit. Anyway, it was time for the hospital, and off I went with this thinking that it was going to be 3 to 4 days. And my husband dropped me off. He was only allowed to come to the reception because, of course, no one was allowed in the hospitals except the patients. And the nurse came to fetch me and take me to my ward. And as we were walking along, she said, why do you have a bag? Our overnight bag. And I said, well, I'm going to be here for 3 to 4 days. And she had this little, I want to call it an evil chuckle. She said, darling, you're going to be here for at least 7 days, and you don't need anything other than your toothbrush and your cell phone. And I thought, shit just got real. So she said, quickly call back your husband and give him your bag. Wow, did that send my anxiety levels through the roof. One, isn't it funny? I have no comfort of my own comfort, no PJs. Like none of my stuff seems really crazy, but I had to hand that over. And she had just broken the news that I was there for 7 days, whether I liked it or not. I was like, no, this is not right. This is not what my doctor said. Anyway, I found myself becoming quite quiet, and my self-talk started. Just calm down, Evelyn. Just calm down, one step at a time, one day at a time. Also, a great way to deal with a cancer diagnosis is one step at a time, one day at a time. Anyway, so my husband also big eyes as I handed him my bag, and he had to leave, which was terrible. I could see in his eyes he was devastated, just leaving me, Anyway, to the ward, went through all the process of checking in to my new hotel for 7 days, and then being wheeled to theatre. And I was a little surprised. I thought they'd give me a pre-med, but they never did. And on the way into theatre, I'm met by the anaesthetist, who tells me that he's going to do his best to keep me under. If he struggles, he's going to have one on my ankle, one on my wrist, and if he struggles, he will put a second port, if you like, on my right hand, a yellow port, and that will be, to keep me under for the duration. Anyway, that was terrifying. How many ports do you need, dude? I still maybe didn't realize the magnitude of what I was going to be going through. Again, self-talk, breathe, Evelyn, breathe, because I was feeling like I was having to be so brave when actually I was absolutely terrified. I was having to be really strong when all I wanted was somebody there to hold my hand, or to, to encourage me, and I suppose it's support. Anyway, I am being wheeled into theatre with these massive big lights, huge TV screens, and people everywhere. And slowly but surely, the doctors came one by one and said, hello, my name's Dr. So-and-so, and I'm assisting today. Hello, this went on 3 or 4. I was like, what are you people doing? Are you really trying to scare the shit out of me? One doctor was enough, not a whole entourage. Again, breathe, Evelyn. breathe. When you wake up, this will all be over. And sure enough, before I knew it, I was out and waking up in recovery, of course, tubes everywhere. I think I was actually relieved that it was over. I had no idea what had happened, really. Anyway, wheeled back to my room. I've got my own morphine drip on my right arm. Oh yes, what I'd also done was look to see if there was a yellow port on my right hand, and there wasn't. And I thought, okay, yay, at least the anesthetic side of it went well. Anyway, so into ICU. Obviously it takes time to come round. Highly medicated, full of painkillers and all sorts of things. Anyway, then the physio arrives and explains to me that I'm going to have to blow into this toy-looking gadget to increase the volume of my lungs. I was like, seriously, chick, what did you do to my lungs? I went in to have, some of my intestine removed. Anyway, they tell me that they actually collapse your lungs for this operation, and for the next, I think they said 3 days, they would focus on just getting my lungs to work properly, because that was, that's the life side of it. Let's keep this woman alive. Yes, please. Anyway, so that is what they did. I can remember the first, I want to say, I think it was the first day or the next morning, this lady came into the ICU. She was in a lot of pain, and promptly, her bed is opposite my bed, and promptly has a heart attack and dies right there in front of me while I'm in this vulnerable situation. And I remember thinking, oh, is that a sign? Is this a bad sign? Please don't let this be a sign. And then again, the self-talk. Evelyn, she's on her own journey. This is your journey. Just relax, chill out. I want to say at this point, what I was starting to notice is that my mind was keeping positive no matter what. I wasn't going back into that victim state, if you like, that I had been in for the first 3 days. As my lungs improved, I was also taken out of bed. They unclipped me to all the pipes. I got to walk a few steps. I really did whatever they wanted me to get better. And that actually reminds me of another thing. So there were 6 women, 6 of us in the ICU. Please forgive my nasal drip. Not one of them did anything to help themselves. I was really taken by that. There was a lady next to me who'd had pneumonia for 6 weeks. She'd been in hospital, but she did nothing. She didn't want to entertain the physio. When they asked her to have her food so that they could give her tablets, she said she wasn't hungry. She almost was fighting the system, and that surprised me because 6 weeks in hospital, no thanks. So this was a pattern that I was seeing, is that we do have to help ourselves when we're in a situation like this. And I was determined. I had to have the tube down my throat for, I think it was 4 days. Boy, by then I was begging them. I was like, get this pipe out my nose. I need to be a normal person. I remember the first tub of jelly that I was allowed to eat was like, oh, thank goodness, was absolute bliss. Anything other than an ice block was, going to be really delicious for me. So they took the pipe out. It wasn't long when I asked them to please take the morphine drip off my arm, because that just made me feel terrible. I said, let's manage the pain through a drip. Normal painkillers, I didn't want this. And that was also a good move because that allowed me to recover quicker. Anyway, so what other stories can I tell you about hospital? I think also the doctor was, because my mind was so positive, he also allowed me more freedom because I wasn't relying on the pills and I was really trying my hardest, you know. So he was encouraged by my positive attitude, which I was really hoping would let me go sooner, which I think it did in the end. But one of the funny stories I wanted to share with you is that there I was lying in bed, probably about day 3. And I see these ladies coming in, nurses, with their trolley, with a tub of water and clean sheets and clean pajamas, you know, those sexy dresses that are open at the back. Yeah, that one. And I think, oh, yay, I'm going to have a bed bath. I love to be clean when I'm in bed. I'm not, you know, I have to shower before I get into bed. So the fact that I was going to have this bath was just like so exciting. Anyway, of course, as they drew closer to me, I thought, oh, I'm going to have a head to toe bath. You know, that means that these aunties are going to wash my private parts. Well, I wish I'd been there to see my own face when the woman said, okay, darling, now we are going to wash your butterfly. And I laughed out loud because I thought I've never heard it referred to as a butterfly. And they were so professional, sorted it out, and before long I was feeling very clean in my new pajamas. The family, of course, was all on video calling because they weren't allowed in the hospital. I think that was probably a hard thing for me because I could see how strong they were being. But in the beginning, I could see how shocked they were at all the pipes and the, you know, drips. I think that was a little hard for them. And then I suppose as they saw I was making progress, it became a bit easier. But to see them when after 7 days I was finally let out, I must tell you that I ugly cried because it was such a relief to be able to hug and touch and be with, you know, people I love rather than in a ward, although I must say the staff were amazing. So it was home after 7 days. It was a week later that I was to see the doctor and for him to check out his handiwork with my zip, as I called it. And he explained to me that he'd sent away the tumor he had removed and that in fact I had stage 3 colon cancer. And this is because it is now spread into your lymph nodes and who knows where else. And of course, the recommendation is to have chemotherapy. And interesting, I noticed when he used that word that the hairs on my arm stood up. Almost like my body was talking to me. It was quite strange. Anyway, gave me the name of an oncologist and sent me on my way. And we got home and started to discuss what happens now. For a long time, I have been a life coach who combines coaching with healing, all of it holistic modalities. Body talk, Reiki, sound therapy, and then of course, wherever possible, homeopathic medication. So now to totally go against what I preached didn't make sense to me. But what really amazed me was that every single time I heard the chemo word, even when I used it, like clockwork, my hairs would stand up on my body. And I thought, there's something in this. I've got to listen. I have to really think about this. And this is when I had to find peace. And I would lock myself away. It sounds a bit dramatic, but I would close the door and ask not to be disturbed. And I would sit quietly, just quietening the chatter in my mind. Being diagnosed with cancer is an absolute mind fuck. Sorry for the words, but there is no better way of describing it. Your mind just goes crazy making up stories, and I knew I had to quieten that chatter, because how was I ever going to decide on what my plan forward was with this noise going on in my head? And so for a few days I would sit and just meditate, actually just breathe, focus on my breathing. Like, no, I let the thoughts come and go, and I really, when I say focused on my breathing, I would literally watch my chest rise and fall. I would notice, is it filling up my belly? Am I breathing shallow or deep? Or is my inhale shallow, my exhale deep? You know, what is the rhythm? So my brain was focused on my breath. The thoughts would come, I would let them go and just focus. Look at your chest, watch your chest. Oh wow, look at that. Okay, so that's 1, 2, like really silly conversation, but it was all just around my breath. And it did keep my mind busy. And it also allowed me to listen and tap into my inner wisdom, because we have that in us. We all have the knowledge that we need to heal within us. And I knew I had to have a plan. If I was going to say no to chemo, I had to have my own plan. And so I listened to people. I got a lot of advice from a lot of people. And in the end, I said, okay, stop. And I think the names that came up, that resonated with me in terms of doctors, healers, I would bank them and think, okay, that's interesting. That name's come up. And then when I said no to no more advice, it made it a lot easier, because, oh my goodness, you can get advice from everyone. And I know someone, and my mother's auntie, and, you know, my daughter's friend's mom, you know, there is so many people out there that are dealing with cancer and have got a lot of advice. But at the end of the day, you've got to find quiet to decide what is right for you. And that was very clear to me. What was right for me? What felt right in my body? What felt right? So when it came to alternative doctors, I met one, and he resonated, and he felt right, and his practice was with a frequency machine called a Rife machine. Okay, he has a really fancy one. But it made sense to me that you've got good cells and you've got bad cells. And the good cells have to be strong enough to fight the cancerous cells. That's what made sense to me. Chemo, in my very limited knowledge, kills off everything that didn't make sense to me. So I decided frequency was the route I was going to go. I knew I wanted to work with healers, and thankfully from the profession I'm in, I was able to pick 4 healers who I really rate, and then once a week I saw one of the healers. I decided no Googling, no trying to be my own doctor, that I would just hand over to these people. I wanted a homeopath who could perhaps, I want to say medicate me, but really look after me from a whole holistic point of view, mind, body, and soul. I found one who I could work with, who again felt right and resonated. I wanted an oncologist that would allow me to do my own thing. That was more difficult than I thought, but I found one because that was the plan that came to me while I was in a place of stillness. I needed a plan of action. What was I going to do? Boom, 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 boom. And then I got on with it. In the meantime, I had gone to an oncologist, the name I'd been given, and to be honest, my husband and I sat there and I felt like I want to say a rabbit. It was more like a rat who was just going to get onto the spinning wheel like everyone else. This is what you've got. This is what we're going to give you. This is how it works. Dum, 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 like textbook. And he said, oh, my lady will ring you in 6 weeks' time. I said, no. If I'm going to do chemo, I'll phone you. And with that, we left. Felt a bit irritated and angry that when you, at that point in your life, you are treated like a number. Perhaps that's something I need to bring up with oncologists going forward. Anyway, so 6-week recovery with my zip, and thereafter I got cracking with my plan. I traveled 2 hours a day one way, so 4 hours there and back to this doctor that I was seeing with this Rife machine. And to begin with, we identified 6 forms of cancer that were attacking my cells. And 4 months later, down to 0. My homeopath sent to England for medication. I believe you can get it in South Africa now. That I took, which was literally a blackberry and blueberry concentrate. I went to the healers. What else did I do? I found the oncologist. I had a chat with her. She did many tests. Interesting enough, she said my form of cancer was rare, which I did laugh because I thought, how special am I? I mean, my cancer is rare. I mean, if you're going to go big, girl. Never mind that I hear that so often now, it makes me chuckle. And a lot of the chemo that they give you is potluck. They do give it to you and keep their fingers crossed. Now, I'm not going to slam it because everything has its purpose, and maybe chemo is the right route for you, whatever you decide. As I said to you earlier in this, it's choosing what is right for you. And if you choose the chemo route, then that's your plan. Stick to it. Finish what they've said. I think it's when we allow the noise of everything else to interfere, we affect our mind or state of mind, and you have to be the most positive person you can possibly be to recover from this. Your mind is so powerful and plays such a huge role in your recovery. Please don't underestimate that for yourself. So choose, take a moment, take a breath. I think a lot of us, when we diagnosed, we have this fear of death, and then we must act really quickly. And I think that's also a mistake. Okay, maybe some people don't have a choice. I'm not sure. But one of the best forms of advice I got was, Evelyn, this cancer's been growing in your body for a long time. Take your time to decide. And that's what I did. And it allowed me to choose what was best for me. And I am so grateful that 4 years later, I am cancer-free. So we're 4 years down the line and I'm cancer-free. And I do get funny looks from our doctors like, you're mad, you're crazy. And in fact, a lot of them don't ask questions because they don't understand. But what I know for sure is there are a few things that I did. One was allow myself time to absorb what had happened, my diagnosis, allowed myself to wallow in self-pity and really ask those hardcore questions. But the positive thing is I didn't stay there. Once I was finished with that, I then found stillness, and was able to come up with a plan that was the right one for me. Seems really simple, but we don't often do it. We don't give ourselves that quiet time to find what is right for us, what is right for me. And then once I got on with my plan, I never looked back, and I didn't entertain any more conversations of advice and what I think and what you think, and I just got on with it. It took me 4 months, which is not a long time, to totally rid my body of these little green rogues, as I call them. I believe that my mind played a huge role in my recovery. Cancer is so scary, but I think we need our minds on our side to get through it. And so if I can give you any advice, is like, just accept this is a scary journey, but you're going to deal with it. And if it's one step at a time, in the beginning for me, it was literally one step. Then it was one day at a time. And slowly, without looking into the future of what might happen, it makes dealing with what's happening today so much easier. So I hope that hearing my story has helped you, has sparked some interest for you. There will be a couple of add-on videos with just narrowing down what I did, my plan. So if you'd like to know more, please click on my page, and there will be other videos for you to see. If you're on your journey, good luck. Remember, it is a journey. Just be kind to yourself. Allow yourself time to rest and process one step at a time. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.